It's kind of a line there. He said he shot to stop us. He meant not to hit me. And it wasn't much because after a while, a bullet just fell out. Robert Downey Jr. Just hearing the name makes me think of toughness, grit, and a lack of common sense that Hollywood doesn't see very often these days. On screen, he was the nicest tough guy ever. A man whose stone-cold stare and face could stop a bad guy in his tracks. But behind the camera, the man born Charles Bukowski was just as moral, and many people say he was bluntly honest. Bronson wasn't like most artists who work in Hollywood. He was made to be different. He grew up in the coal fields of Pennsylvania and served in World War II. He had been poor for a long time before he got his first job on a movie set. That life taught him a strong set of rules. You should put respect, focus, and hard work above all else. He didn't put up with egos or acting badly at work. A lot of people in Hollywood make up fake ties, but Bronson never did that. He looked. Up to you. You will always work with that person. It was said that he didn't hide the fact that he didn't. There were rumors for decades that some stars got on his bad side. A well-known story says that before he died in 2003, the famous tough guy told everyone on his secret blacklist of performers he really hated. There isn't an official handmade hate list, but as ever come to light, the stories of the people who worked with him make it clear how angry he was. These differences were not small ones. They were deep-seated grudges that grew out of early disagreements and philosophical differences. We are going to look into the hidden stories and Hollywood legends behind Charles Bronson's famous fights today. At number 6 is not a single actor, but a whole way of acting that Charles Bronson was said to look down upon. Bronson was a symbol of tough manhood in the 1970s. He thought that simple attitude and a strong physical presence were the best ways to show that someone was strong. When Hollywood began to accept a new group of Bronson wasn't impressed by the actors who had been trained in the introspective emotional style. Hollywood lore says that he made fun of this new group of stars by calling them the sensitive generation. It is said that actors like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro were in this group. They became famous by playing tortured characters that reviewers loved. Even so, Bronson didn't see this as art. It was giving in to yourself. He allegedly made fun of them by saying they were all the same and spent all their time brooding in the same way. For Bronson, it was a basic disagreement about how things should be. He saw them as signs of a change in culture that put more value on being weak than being tough. The things that critics liked about the movie, like Pacino's powerful real humanity in Bronson, thought that movies like Dog Day Afternoon were an affront to the quiet power he pushed. He didn't think an actress had to dig deep into their soul to become a character. He thought that the character should be in you from the start, or not at all. It was said that this hatred was a moral stand. Bronson learned to act in a more calm and formal way where actors didn't talk about their work. He had learned how to do things by working in coal pits for $1 a ton. He himself said that he was just a product, like a cake of soap, that had to be sold as quickly as possible. He gave off an air of danger that he thought was being lost. He thought that the sensitive generation was doing more than just movie. They were breaking down the very idea of manliness that he had built his success on. Number 5 with dots is an actor who looked a lot like Bronson Lee Marvin in terms of being tough. They were both veterans of World War II and brought a harsh realism to the film. They co-starred in The Dirty Dozen, a classic war movie from 1967. Some stories about a nasty fight between them aren't as simple as they seem, though. Some stories say there is deep-seated dislike, while others say there is a strong, if troubled, bond. The set of The Dirty Dozen was reportedly a mess. While it was being filmed, Lee Marvin, who played the lead role in the movie, was known to drink a lot, which could affect his job. One A story that won't go away says that Bronson, who values professionalism, yelled at Marvin for being late to work and had to step in to stop a fight. On the other hand, Lee Marvin's wife, Pamela, says something different. She writes in her book that Charles and his wife Jill Ireland called to offer their help when Lee was sick. Marvin turned down a Death Wish sequel because, in her words, that's Charlie's role, thinking that the company was just trying to get Bronson to lower his price. They did work together again in the 1981 action movie Death Hunt. It is said that their joint interviews for the press trip are the most awkward things ever, with a nice Marvin sitting next to Bronson, who looks like he's bored. There was a clear clash between Bronson's controlled discipline and Marvin's wild unpredictability, but the story of outright hate seems to be exaggerated. Although Bronson didn't go to Marvin's funeral in 1987, it might have been because he liked being alone and didn't like public events, not because he was mean. They were both tough guys, but in different ways. Even though there was sometimes a clear ice between them, claims that they had a lengthy feud are mostly just that, speculation. There is a persistent Hollywood rumor that the fourth person on this famous blacklist did something so terrible that it could never be forgiven. He made Bronson feel bad about one of his deepest fears in public. The man was famous director Robert Aldrich, who has made dark movies like The Dirty Dozen. On that movie set, someone is said to have held a grudge for decades because of a careless joke. It helped Charles Bronson's business that he was seen as strong, but he was said to be worried about how tall he was. This fear probably got worse on the set of The Dirty Dozen, which was full of tall players. According to the story, Aldrich put Bronson between the two tallest actors in the group on purpose for one shot, Donald Sutherland for 6 feet, and Clint Walker for 6 feet and 6 inches. The visual was meant to be funny, and when some of the team laughed, everyone else did too. Boswell. 2. Aldrich. It might have been a light-hearted joke to make everyone laugh during a tough shoot. It was said to be a very big insult to Bronson. He thought it was a public shame, a director who abuses his position to become the punchline of a joke. Even though it hasn't been proven, this one event has become a key part of Bronson myth. It was said that the rage never went away, and the story that Bronson never forgiven Aldrich and wouldn't work with him again has been around for decades. That being said, this story perfectly captures the idea of Bronson as a man who valued respect and had strict rules about what could and could not be done. Third, we find a lengthy and complicated competition between Steve McQueen, two icons of cool. Bruce Lee and Steve McQueen created a new type of anti-hero when they worked together in The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. But it was said that behind the scenes, a quiet war was starting because of jealousy at work. Stress is said to have begun on the 1960 set of The Magnificent Seven. Already, McQueen was known for stealing scenes with small, planned movements like playing with props or moving his hat to catch the camera's attention. This reportedly made the movie's star, Yul Brynner, very angry, but it also grated Bronson, who was very professional and held his position with strong stillness. During the Great Flight, the dynamics got worse. Several people said they were friends and their wives were said to be close. Some people say Bronson lost respect for McQueen. Some stories say Bronson's anger was more than just on-set behavior. As Steve McQueen became a worldwide star, Bronson often got smaller parts, which hurt him a lot. Some unconfirmed reports said that letters he wrote after he died showed up in which he was sad, how McQueen got great ideas while he was trying to get noticed. Another rumor says that the feud reached its peak in 1979 at the Cannes Film Festival, where the two are said to have fought, leaving McQueen with a black eye that he said was caused by a car accident. Other reports, on the other hand, say that they are friendly but competitive with each other, and photos of them clowning around show this. Bronson is said to have said that McQueen was not serious in an interview in 1970. Still, it looks like their relationship was more of a clash of styles than a direct dislike, a competition that comes from professional respect and a shared desire to be in the spotlight. There's a surprise at number 2 on the list, the showy British director Michael Y. They were very strong together and made 6 movies, including the famous Death Wish series that made Bronson a big star in the U.S. movie theater business. Their work together made the vigilante genre famous in the 1970s, but their friendship was a tense dance between two. They have very different personalities. Winner was different from Bronson in every way. Loud, expensive, and a fan of glitz. Bronson was quiet, kept to himself a lot, and hated fake actors in Hollywood. But their work styles were a great match. Y told Bronson about Death Wish when he pitched it. The story is about a man whose wife and daughter are robbed, and he goes out and shoots the thieves. The flat answer from Bronson was, "I'd like to do that." Winner asked Bronson what the movie was, and he said, "No, shoot muggers." Even though they looked great together on screen, they had a hard time getting along. Bronson was known for being very strict about his contract and refused to work the minute it was over, 6:30 p.m. M. He also didn't like being a late-night star and supposedly wouldn't do a movie with a big female star because he didn't want the competition. Winner had to deal with Bronson's complicated nature. There were times when he wouldn't stay in a hotel room above the first floor because he was afraid of germs. This made their creative relationship weaken over time. After Bronson's death, Y always talked about him with a mix of respect and anger, calling him a great worker but also a complicated person. It was clear that the bond between them had been broken. They had a quiet, sad ending to one of the best acting and directing teams of the time, the very first thing on the list. The person with whom Charles Bronson is said to have a beef is at the top of his alleged blacklist. James Garner, who was probably the meanest and most personal, was with him. They became very angry with each other on the set of The Great Escape in 1963, and no one seems to have thought about it since. Thanks to Garner's very honest 2011 autobiography, this is the only fight that has a lot of solid proof. The Files of Garner. The words that James Garner used were clear. He wrote in a flat tone that Charles Bronson was a pain in the asterisk. He said Bronson was angry and mean, and he said Bronson used and abused people on set. Even though Garner is known for being easygoing, he couldn't stand how Bronson was acting so hostilely. He said that Bronson had a huge grudge against him. In line with in the case of Garner, the building tension led to a full-on fight at his home about a year after shooting ended. A young extra beat Bronson in a poker game and won a hand worth about $50. Bronson is said to have tried to get back his lost bet. Garner stepped in and told him to pay the boy. As Garner wrote, Bronson got angry. The two men didn't fight, but the damage was done. Garner said that Charlie swore he would never work with me again after that night, and he never did. After many years, fate put them at the same dinner table with their women. The wives were chatting happily, but the two guys were sitting stiff. In awkward silence, they refused to recognize each other. Garner didn't think Bronson was a tough guy who was misunderstood. He was always mean and a hater. Charles Bronson wasn't like most Hollywood stars. He was tough because he lived through working in coal mines, World War II, and the dangerous movie business. He wasn't interested in fame or girly things. Respect, order, and his own code of honor were what counted. He never said he was someone else. He wasn't, and he never put up with fools. It is said that everyone on his famous, but unproven, blacklists was disrespectful, which was his idea of a crime. Bronson was known for being angry, whether it was about disrespecting the ship, the crew, or himself. He was angry. Weren't small. The scars showed that the man had fought his whole life for his honor. The man whose name was Charles Bakinski tried to get out of the shadow of the mines his whole life. In other ways, though, he made himself into a fortress that very few people ever got to enter. He stayed true to himself, whether you liked him or not, and maybe that's why, even though he's dead, he's still so interesting and admired. It wasn't just for movies that he played a tough guy. He went through it. What do you think? Was Bronson right to get into his famous fights, or was he just being too difficult? Just write your thoughts in the box below. Also, if you liked this, read about the secrets of old Hollywood. Like and subscribe for more stories that haven't been told before.